In today's world, we are increasingly dependent on technology. Our business and personal lives rely on it, but as you've probably noticed, it's unreliable. Our computers are slow, so we end up squinting at smartphones and tablets. The jokers we pay to fix our stuff have no clue what they're doing. We live in constant fear that something's going to happen to our personal data. So we're scared into paying for fake protection that proves useless when disaster strikes. Update attacks, fake Wi-Fi, cloud control, intelligent, successful people feel intimidated by the chaos and think it's somehow their fault. If they only knew what the industry was doing to them, they'd get torches and pitchforks. If only we had someone to explain it all in plain English so we can start protecting ourselves. Oh wait, we do! It's the Computer Exorcist Podcast with your host, Mark Anthony Arena.
From the Wallace Memorial microphone in my home office, freezing in the hills of Weston, New York, this is the Computer Exorcist Podcast. My name is Mark Anthony Arena. I am so glad you have joined me today for another teaching episode. I want to thank Carl for stopping by last week. That was a blast. I will certainly have him on more often. He just makes all of this stuff an absolute joy. I want to thank Everett, Massachusetts Library for hosting me about a week ago. That was a blast. I spoke to a group of ladies there, and the librarian had Italian cookies and brownies and coffee for after my talk, so that was just super. And so then I spent some time in Boston and New Jersey with family, and it gives me another perspective, right? When I see people who are in non-Rochester, I get that perspective of, wow, there's actually hope in the world and people can actually achieve things and follow their dreams instead of just staying home. So that's pretty cool. And the last day I was in Jersey, about an hour before I left, I finished my book. I finished writing my book, Don't Be Taken by Silicon Valley. So I still need to proofread it, and the illustrations are coming soon. I just commissioned them, and they're going to be awesome. So I'm very excited about that. And yeah, I just reminded myself throughout this year, like, look, Mark, you already have the good ideas. Just stop refining and refining and refining ad infinitum. Just get them out there. And people, even my 4 core concepts, as you know, are still 10, 20 years ahead of the IT industry. And really, if I could do it all over again, I would have just gone back 10, 15 years ago and just started giving speeches to bigger audiences about my 4 core concepts, right? Everything in my 2017 book is still ahead of the industry. So anyway, this is a sequel. The core concepts are all still there, and then some, but I just have some updated examples, and it's going to be a lot of fun, so stay tuned. You can get a preview edition right now as a PDF if you go to my site, and for a limited time only, it's on sale for $0. All right, we're going to do some articles here. Let's get right into it. This one comes from the RIT Reporter magazine. It's a color magazine. They've been printing for at least 20, 25 years. They've been printing it ever since I was there. And this is from November of 2025. And it says, Gen Z's Revolution. Nepal's new government constructed over Discord. All right, Discord is a social media service. It started out as a really simple place where you could just type messages to each other and then also have voice conversations with your microphone. But then it went wild. I don't know what happened, but a couple of years ago, someone took over, and now it has billions and trillions and billions of features. I tried it a year or two ago. I tried to get into it, and I was completely terrified by it. But anyway, the point is, it's a social media network where you can talk to people. And it's similar to the situation where in the Arab Spring, they were using WhatsApp and they were using Apple iMessage and whatever to spread the word in a decentralized way from person to person doing grassroots campaigns. Discord is a popular social media platform that has become the go-to space for Gen Z and RIT students alike to video call, instant message, and most recently ignite a revolution. After several days of protests across the country, Nepalese youth succeeded in overthrowing their government. Not only was Discord used to aid this revolution, but it also served as a forum to organize Nepal's new government. Okay, so they used it afterward as well. And obviously that's important, right? It's one thing to take out a bad government, but it's another thing to figure out what we're going to do next, right? And hey, it's the same thing with your personal life, right? It's like, okay, we're going to drop this bad habit, but what are we going to replace it with? Nepal has long been one of the poorest and politically unstable countries in Asia, with these conditions affecting the working class the most, particularly its youth. According to the Atlantic Council, over 60% of Nepal's population is under 30. That's interesting. Yet they face unemployment rates as high as 20%. Years of built-up frustration amongst the Nepali working class youth ultimately fueled the revolution. According to the CBC, protests began when Nepalese youth began calling out the children of the ruling elite in Nepal. These children, pejoratively termed Nepo babies or nepotism babies, were criticized for flaunting their wealth while the working class starved. These posts enraged the working class youth, who started an online trend condemning the corruption. And in response, the Nepalese government promptly banned 26 of the social media platforms, right? So it's all about, and I say this in my next book, it's all about trying to play whack-a-mole and keep things under control and try to get your hands to cover things as much as you can. And that is not a winning proposition. That can only last for so long, right? We all have a human tendency to want to control each other, to keep things under wraps, to keep things contained. But as you will see in my book, with many of the schemes that are out there in the tech industry and humanity in general, it can only last so long. So that's what happened here. The article forgets to mention that the children of the ruling elite were flaunting their wealth and the working class starved. The article forgets to mention this was a communist regime. So I don't know, maybe they didn't know that. But that's usually what happens. It's, you get old enough. You get old enough like me and you start to recognize patterns in the world. My mentor, Dr. Barb, always said that to me. She said, Mark, when you get older, you're going to start to recognize patterns in the world. So that's what happened. There was a few ruling elite, and they were flaunting their wealth and starving the working class. So that was a communist government, and they have been overthrown. Okay, this next one is another one that's very relevant to my book coming out, because I explain the treadmill scandal. I explain it in detail in the book. So this one is from listener Matt from Wall Street Journal 2022. Before you buy a Chromebook, check the expiration date. Look up the auto update expiration date on Chrome OS devices you're shopping for or already own to avoid security risks. And this was author Nicole Nguyen. Like food and medication, our gadgets are only good for so long. That's not entirely accurate. It's actually, because of the treadmill scandal, these products are designed to be only good for so long. All right? If you have old products that aren't controlled by the cloud and aren't subject to update attacks, those products will keep working. Anything from a hammer to a early 90s, late 90s computer, right? Anything in human history, bows and arrows and wooden clubs and everything up until really the mid-2010s. Those products will work forever. It's only modern products that are designed to stop working. Okay, so she says, unfortunately, in the ever-expanding universe of online retail, many devices are sold past their best-buy dates. Chromebooks, which is the Google-powered laptops from popular PC brands, which gained popularity during the pandemic when lockdowns created unprecedented demand for computers at home, those Chromebooks can lose critical functionality. And it's ironic that they became popular during the lockdown, because the whole ethos of Chromebook is to lock you down. The ethos of Chromebook is, we're going to protect you from the Microsoft chaos, and we're going to exchange that chaos for our dictatorship, right? And Google makes the mistake that humanity has for ages of, well, the only alternative to chaos is brutal control, right? They don't understand there's something better. Sue of Utah was perplexed when suddenly the website she always used to sign up for volunteering stopped loading properly. Her son, Jim, Drove over and noticed that the computer software didn't appear to be current. So I hit the update button and found out it couldn't update. All right, so here's what's happening in reality, right? Unbeknownst to most people. There's something called the treadmill scandal where, here's how it goes. Websites get worse every 2 weeks. They get more and more ultra bloated and ultra paranoid. So that browsers, web browsers like Firefox, Chrome, and heaven forbid Edge, no longer work with them, right? So then you have to update the browser. Okay, fine. Then after a few browser updates over a couple of years, you'll be greeted with a message that says, shame on you, you're not allowed to update your browser. You need a whole new operating system. Fine. So that's where they get you. Then you have to update the operating system. Then after a couple of years, it says, shame on you, you're not allowed to update the operating system. Please put this computer in the garbage. It's utterly, utterly, utterly manufactured and fake and preventable. But this is the treadmill that they want you on so that you keep putting these products, these perfectly good products, in the garbage and buying new ones to feed their greed. Okay, that's the real story behind this, okay? So the Chromebook was purchased in 2014, but it was past its expiration date of August 2019. Okay, once a Chrome OS device expires, the device might continue to function as expected, a Google spokesman said, but over time there could be incompatibilities with certain websites or applications or management policies with no ability to fix them. Again, this stems from websites becoming worse and worse and worse and ultra bloated every day. If websites stayed the same, right, if you go to visit an old website, like one of the famous ones is the Space Jam movie website, if you go visit an old website, it'll work perfectly fine. But your browser and your OS and your computer have to keep up because websites are made to be worse and worse and worse and worse over time. So Google says, look, we're only going to support you. We're only going to provide updates to keep up with this for a certain amount of time. We can't promise you infinite updates, okay? So in their defense, they have to come up with an expiration date. They're saying, look, we're only going to help you out for so long. However, as I say in the intro of my book, all of this is disorganized crime. It's all chaos. It's all kind of an unintended soup where a perfect storm of corruption, where each cog in the wheel is utterly helpless and only a few people see the bigger picture, where we are all on this tandem bicycle and we're all pedaling, but there's nobody steering and we're headed off a cliff, okay? So here's the kicker here. She said, it can be frustrating to turn a device in good condition into e-waste, right? And that's true, right? All these perfectly good computers are being thrown in the garbage. That's insane. How many millions did your local school district blow on Chromebooks? And now all of a sudden, sorry, too bad, shame on you, get rid of them? Really? It's perfectly good stuff. Again, what if I came to your house and said, hey, your hammer and your screwdriver are going to get viruses unless you throw them in the garbage? And people just believed me. Because what if the whole hardware store industry just decided to do that one day? And what if people believed me, right? So she says, unlike old Mac and PC computers, which can be repurposed at the end of their supported lives, right, there isn't much you can do with an out-to-pasture Chromebook. All right, this is the huge key kicker here. This is the part. Here's the kicker. Unlike old Mac and PCs, which can be repurposed, and what she actually means is which can be liberated with a product called Mint, right? You rip out the Microsoft Windows or the Mac OS filth, and you install Mint, which is magical and perfect forever, giving that computer many, many more years of life, right? Until it actually does physically break. So she says there's not much you can do with an outdated Chromebook. Okay, guess what? There was this guy, there's an angel who came from above named Mr. Chromebox, okay? And he decided to figure out a way to liberate all these Chromebooks. So what he did is he created this little piece of software, and it's called firmware, and of course, every single Chromebook is totally different. Of course, they couldn't make them consistent. So he has to do a little chasing, and he has to come up with a piece of firmware for every single model of Chromebook out there. But he's glorious, and he does this, and he's beautiful, and I gave him a little donation and emailed him and told him, thank you, you're doing the Lord's work. So please give a donation to Mr. Chromebox to help him in his quest to liberate all these Chromebooks. So he creates a little piece of firmware that you install on the Chromebook, and voila, it becomes a real laptop. It becomes I'm a real boy. It becomes a real laptop, and then you can install Mint onto it. And I have done this many times. You can also install Windows onto it. In a lot of cases, it's slightly more difficult, but hey, if you need Windows for something, fine. But it's a glorious thing where people give me these old expired Chromebooks. Look, there's an e-waste facility down the street from me, and they're selling Chromebooks for $25 a piece. These are perfectly good grade A, grade B physical condition computers that are perfectly fine, but they have a little pop-up message, and Google says, shame on you, you're going to get viruses, and you can't go to certain websites anymore. Too bad for you. Perfectly good machines. So if you're a computer guy, you can liberate them using Mr. Chromebox's firmware if you go to his site, which is mrchromebox.tech. So I'm actually going to email Nicole and tell her about that. And hopefully she can do a follow-up article on that. All of the millions and millions and millions and millions of Google Chromebooks that were purchased by your school district that are about to be thrown in the garbage can be saved. That is my point, okay? A couple more, and then we'll get you out of here. CarAndDriver.com 2022, as 3G rides off into the sunset, what cars are affected? All right, so here's a different example of the treadmill scandal. It's a different treadmill where the phone industry, the mobile phone industry, wants you to put your smartphone in the garbage every 2 years. They want you to discard it and buy a new one every 2 years. Again, there's absolutely no reason for it. I personally use an iPhone 7. Last year, about a year ago, I just went from a 6 to a 7 for my secondary cell phone. And it's totally fine. There's no reason to do anything. So they want to scare you, right? So what they did around 2022 is they knocked down all of the 3G, the third generation cell towers. I mean, they probably didn't knock down the tower, but they ripped off those antennas and put newer 5G antennas in order to cook us. But that's the point. Wait a minute. But there's a lot of smartphones out there that were designed for the third generation cell phone network, the 3G. Oops, sorry, too bad. Can't use them anymore. Put them in the garbage. Now, luckily in Africa, they still have 3G antennas up on those towers. So if you have any older smartphones that don't support 4G and 5G, then you can recuse yourself of them, sign out of your Apple or Samsung account, please, and then properly erase the phone, and then you can send them to Africa. Send them to missionaries who go there or whatever, and that's what I've been doing, and these people are thrilled. All right, so, but in the first world, they decided, hey, let's just get rid of all the 3G towers, and that will force people to put their smartphones in the garbage and buy new ones. What a waste. All right, wait a minute, Mark, wait a minute. You said something about what cars are affected? Yeah, so, you know all these stupid connectivity features, right? You don't need a car with horsepower. People don't care about that. People care about connectivity now, right? So what happens to all those cars that have those connectivity services, right? For example, as the article says here, Acura Link Premium, personal concierge services to make hotel reservations, right? Because you don't have a smartphone to do that. You got to call them. Acura Link Connect, automatic collision notification, emergency calls, stolen vehicle locators, enhanced roadside assistance, remote door unlock, send destination, find my car, destination by voice, vehicle status, security alarm alert, and real traffic and maintenance reminders, right? All of the garbage, the connected garbage in your cars is all powered by a little cell phone antenna, a little cell phone modem inside of your car, right? All those over-the-air update attacks, all of that garbage, that connectivity is powered by a little 3G cell phone in these cars, right? For the past bunch of years. And now, sorry, too bad, those towers are gone, so your car is no longer allowed to connect to that. Again, it is their hope here. It is their hope, the audacity of these people. They want you to put your car in the garbage and buy another one. Now, Acura claims dealers can install a new device for them, and certain owners may qualify for $1,500 off of a new Acura. All right, so either you buy the new device or, oh wow, you get a penny off your car if you put your car in the garbage and buy a new one from us. Right? What's $1,500? That's like a less than 1% coupon or whatever. And same goes for Audi, and the same goes certainly for any GM car with the OnStar garbage. Those were all powered by 3G, right? So yeah, the cars built after 2022, yeah, those are going to have 4G modems in them. So, oh yeah, they're only good for probably another 10 years, and then those will be knocked down, so that you have to put those cars in the garbage. Luckily, most people don't care about the fake, evil, garbage-connected services, so luckily people are just going to keep using their cars for transportation, which is what they're actually meant for. But that's the point here. You get it? It's a treadmill. So all of those cars had 3G cell phones built into them for all that fake connectivity garbage that you didn't actually need. And the 3G cell towers are gone, so now those cars can no longer connect to anything, so they're just crying out for help, and their calls are unrequited. All right, a couple more. CarAndDriver.com. NHTSA okays manufacturing of low-volume turnkey replica cars. This is great news, right? Because as I always rage about these new cars and the treadmill, and you have to keep buying new cars, and every new car has some evil integrated stereo that you're no longer allowed to remove, right? That's convenient, so now you can't upgrade the stereo and you can't do anything new with it, so you have to put it in the garbage, right? I mean, pretty soon they're going to start gluing the tires to your car so that once the tires are worn out, you just put the whole thing in the garbage, right? So the good news is the NHTSA in America okayed the manufacture of replica cars. In other words, old cars that were beautiful and had simple technology, and they were comfortable and simple, and they didn't infuriate you, and they are fixable. Replica vehicles and kit cars have long been a way for enthusiasts to get a piece of some of the greatest examples of automotive unobtainium. Thanks to efforts of the SEMA, the Specialty Equipment Market Association, customers in the U.S. will now be able to legally purchase turnkey, factory-assembled replica vehicles based on designs that are more than 25 years old. In other words, good cars before the world fell apart. So you could always buy a kit car in the past, but you'd have to assemble it yourself or hire someone to do that. So now what they're saying is you can call some factory and buy a car that was of a 25-year-old design, right? A pre-2000 design. Low-volume vehicle manufacturers will be able to construct up to 325 units per year. Okay, fine. I mean, there's not going to be a huge demand for them. That's fine. It's only for us enlightened people, for you and me, listener. Anything from old-school hot rods to mid-century muscle cars and more modern classics. These replica vehicles will still be required to meet current emissions regulations. Okay, fine. And we will hopefully start to see an influx of new pseudo-vintage machines powered by modern emissions-compliant engines. So that's pretty cool. I think that's glorious and wonderful. And pretty soon you'll be able to see cars that are actually simple to drive, own, use, and maintain. All right, couple more, folks. This one is September 2025 Electrical Contractor Magazine. Thanks to my dad, who provides me these articles from this magazine. Let's get flexible. These days, hardly a week goes by without coming across a headline or two highlighting how new AI data centers will drive up the need for new generation capacity, along with all of our utility bills. Some projections see the proportion of U.S. electricity consumption powering these facilities doubling in just the next 5 years, right? And most of the time, these AI searches just pop up. We don't want them, right? When you're doing a Google or a search or any kind of internet search, these AI attackers pop up. And when you're using Microsoft Word to type a simple document, the AI attacker pops up. So it's a glorious example of waste. Wasted energy, wasted electricity, wasted effort, wasted time, okay? Fine. If you really initiated the conversation with AI, fine. But that's what's actually happening. Utilities in some regions are slowing or halting new agreements with data center owners as they look for ways to meet potential demand growth without raising bills throughout their territories, right? So look, when someone said, hey, I'm going to build a data center a couple years ago, power companies said, yay, we get more customers. Yay, we get to sell more power. But now they're realizing it's the demand is crippling, right? It's just like years ago, I used to give speeches at a local rec center, and I was thrilled to get all this stuff off my chest. I was thrilled to educate people and make money and teach people. But then it backfired because the demand was crippling. I was crushed by the number of people who wanted me in their living rooms. I was just so exhausted. Anyway, so that's that. Batch processing. So here's a couple things that the utility companies and the data centers are doing. They're not actually reducing their energy usage. No, why would they do that? But they're at least trying to balance it out, right? They're balancing it out. So, during the day, as you can imagine, more electricity is used. And then at night, the factories, most of them are shut down, and the offices are shut down, and people are watching TV a lot less, and so on. Okay. All right. So we're going to use a lot less electricity at night. Okay, fine. So what they do is they tell the computers to put those tasks off until later this evening when the electricity consumption is lower. So the power company can just physically keep up with the demand. Okay. So one example is batch processing. Not every AI operation is the same. Users doing searches or needing help with stuff might want responses right away. But behind the scenes work, like imaging and video and drug research and all that, can happen over time. They don't have to happen right away. So they call that asynchronous. They don't have to happen on demand. Batching those tasks together and turning them off during peak hours and just doing them during evening hours can free up some electricity for the rest of us. Load shifting between data centers. This is cool. So the largest AI operators, called hyperscalers, right? That's a scary term, but that's what they call them, have data centers around the globe, right? Google and Apple and Microsoft, and they have data centers around the globe. So you know what? They don't have to wait till the evening necessarily. They can shoot that information over to somewhere on the other side of the globe where it is evening. And then, hey, look, it's evening over there. Let's do our tasks over there. Isn't that interesting? It used to be that folks in India and the Philippines had to work the C shift, right? They had to work at night during their time so that they could be awake to serve us in America during our daytime. So that's still the case, but now it's, instead of the people having to stay up late, it's the AI data centers that are doing work when it's evening in Asia. Okay, isn't that cool? Also, even if you do have one location and that's it, they also have on-site battery systems, right? So if you incorporate battery systems into your AI data center, then hey, guess what? You can switch to battery power during demand peaks at any time, right? Any point in time, you can switch to battery power during those peaks. And so if you set it up so you primarily draw from the battery, you can set it up so the battery will charge a little bit during the day, and then in the evening it'll charge fully, right? So it's like a reservoir. It's like a water reservoir. All right, so that's pretty cool. That's how they're doing it. I think it was during the State of the Union or something like that, I heard that they're going to come out with a law that says that these AI data centers can't just show up to some community and start taking all their power. I heard that there's some law that's coming out that says, you know what, if you're a data center, you have to figure out how to put your own power plant in. And that's interesting. I was perplexed a couple of years ago when Bill Gates got on TV. I think it was CBS Sunday Morning maybe. And he said, I'm going to do nuclear power. And we're thinking, what are you doing that for? And I was like, all right, that's sort of cool. But since it's Bill Gates, there's always a nefarious reason. Okay, finally, I'll finish on a positive note here. This was an advertisement for Volkswagen in 1962. And pay attention here. How can you be sure you're getting a 62? Don't worry. You couldn't buy a new 61 Volkswagen if you wanted to. There are none left. Besides, there are some surefire ways to tell you're 62 from any other year. The taillights are bigger, and it also has a gas gauge. I think that's handy. That's one feature I would say is handy. But most of the changes can't be seen. You'll feel them. We put new heater outlets, both front and rear. And steering parts that once needed maintenance don't need them anymore. All right. And a spring to hold the front door open. All right. These are all actually good improvements. In all, there are 28 significant changes, but not one of them makes last year's model obsolete. And that's the way it'll be in 63 as well. So that's really interesting. Two things here. Number one, That was back in the days when changes meant improvements, whereas nowadays update attacks mean damaging and anti-improvements and destruction and chaos, right? But also, if you notice, they're saying, hey, look, we care about our brand reputation and we want you to love our brand, so we're not going to tell you to put it in the garbage. We're going to tell you that your car from last year is still perfectly fine. And some other ad that I saw for them years ago, it said, hey, guess what? We've designed our parts so that you can retrofit them into your older 61 and 60 and whatever models, so you can keep those cars on the road, because those people cared. Those people were raised with something called morals, and they actually cared about the environment, and they cared about the brand image, they cared about user satisfaction, and they didn't want to just milk people and torment them. Imagine that. On that note, I'm Mark Anthony Arena. Make sure you get your preview edition of my book at thecomputerexorcist.com. It's called Don't Be Taken by Silicon Valley. It's currently just as a PDF, but very soon it will be available in bookstores. Thanks so much. Talk to you next week.